thank you all for coming today. I'm Rosalie Schaefer, president of the Manatee League of Women Voters. And first, I'd like to introduce our speakers today. We are going to have Susie Copeland, who is president of the Manatee NAACP. And we're going to have the Bradenton Chief of Police, Michael Radzalowski, and the Palmetto Chief of Police, Rick Wells. And thank you very much for coming today. The issue: recent confrontations between police and minorities have resulted in the deaths of several young, unarmed African Americans. These incidents have kindled outrage in the communities and calls for justice, reform, and better relations. How can Manatee County avoid the mistakes and tragedies happening elsewhere? After their presentations, we will have questions from the floor. Please use the microphone at that point and give your name, and that ensures that your comments will get onto the METV videotape, which will show this program later on and also on their website. Okay, without further ado, Susie Copeland.
Thank you, Rosalie, for inviting, inviting us here. I think this is a great opportunity to have this type of discussion, especially as we look across our country, the incidents of whatever you want to call it, misconduct, the shootings of unarmed African Americans, the incarceration of African Americans, as well as young women as well, African American women. I was thrilled that Rosalie asked me. The NAACP back in October, we felt the calling as we looked across, read the papers, heard the news of all the incidents of violence throughout our country. And I said, we don't want this to happen here in Manatee County. And how do you prevent something like that from happening in Manatee County? I felt that we needed to have a conversation. And so we began this conversation back in October with the Chief of Police in Bradenton, Palmetto, and the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. And we had this conversation about especially the relationship between law enforcement and the minority community. I've not had an incident with law enforcement, but from my own perspective, my own feelings about it, there is a level of fear for me. There is a level of distrust, and it's based on what I've heard, what I've seen, not what has actually happened to me. As the NAACP president, I get a lot of calls from individuals who have been apprehended, who have been incarcerated by the various local law enforcement officials. And my heart goes out to them because I can't really experience, I don't know. I don't know what they've gone through because I haven't gone through it. However, with that, there are two sides to every story. And it's our responsibility as responsible citizens to weigh the evidence. A person may say, my husband and I got into a discussion this morning, and Chief Raz had an incident last week where a young black officer shot a black male. And he said, what are they going to do? And I said, Leonard, let's look at it from this perspective. If you, as an officer, you give a command, and that person doesn't stop, what do? He said, I'd probably tase him. I said, what if they don't have a taser? What would you do? And he would go to the next level. He recently completed the course on bearing arms. And he said, the instructor said to him, never pull your gun unless you plan to kill. And so I said, well, perhaps That's what law enforcement officials are taught as well. I do believe that there are bad citizens. I believe there are bad cops. And it takes us as a community working with the law enforcement officials to make sure that there is a balance. There was an incident that happened with the Manatee County Sheriff's Department, a young man. Thank you, Chief Raz, for hiring this young man. He went to college 4 years, finished in 4 years. That's almost unheard of in today's society. He passed everything with flying colors until he got down to the psychological evaluation. They said he failed it. He was too immature. My first thought was, immature? If he finished college in 4 years, there is a level of maturity there. They did not hire him. They put him in the port to work in the jail. Chief Raz hired him. Now, his father is a high-ranking official with the Manatee County Sheriff's Department. His brother is in law enforcement in Hillsborough County. And so when you have incidents like that, and I asked the chief, the sheriff, I went to him and I spoke to him about this. I said, who did the evaluation? And he expressed that there was a psychologist that they used. You can't properly evaluate me unless you know my story. My culture is so different from other cultures. We are different. People say, angry black woman. I get loud when I'm angry. It doesn't mean that I want to fight, I want to pull a gun. You've got to understand my culture, and typically that's the African-American culture. That's the way we respond. We're not being aggressive. We're not being disrespectful. It's just our way. And I think we have to understand all of the cultures, the Latino culture, the African-American culture, because we're all different. And this great country is a melting pot of all these groups together. We can be a better country. We can be a better America by working together and having an understanding of each other and where we're coming from. I also would like to say that on Monday, the 19th, in celebration of MLK's birthday, the NAACP, in coordination with other groups, the Mount Carmel Resource Center, 13th Avenue Dream Center, and Metro Action Team, we're having a forum with law enforcement. We're continuing the discussion that we had on October 18th of last year. And what we're doing is we're trying to build a relationship with Chief Wells, Chief Razalowski, and Sheriff Stubbe. If we're going to affect change, to bring about a change, we have to have open and honest dialogue. In the past, I was a member of a group called MCAT, Manatee County Community Action Team. And at our meetings, we would have officers from the city of Bradenton to come in and talk about the areas that they zoned. They were assigned to zones in the city of Bradenton. And I found those discussions, they became somewhat hostile, they became offensive, and they became defensive, because the community was saying to these officers, well, you did such and such, this happened. And that becomes adversarial. And so with these discussions, we're trying to eliminate the adversarial positions. Because when you criticize Chief Raz, and if you criticize the NAACP, I'm going to get a little testy too. So when you criticize law enforcement, or any group, or any person, then you're going to get some feedback from them, whether it's good or bad. And most of the time, it's bad response. And so when you have an honest and open conversation where we sit, we talk, we discuss the issues, the impact of action, whether it's from the community or whether it's from law enforcement. Years ago, I joined Chief Raz. He was not the chief of police. I joined as the police force as a community service officer, and I would drive around with I started with the officers, and then I got my own little van, and I would drive around at the various to see what violations were being made. And what I'm trying to do is to get the African American community, the Latino community, let's start riding around. If we want to know what's really happening in the streets, we've got to be in there knowing what's going on. And Sheriff Stubbe sent me a video last week. And this video, I believe it happened in New York, and they had some community organizers and residents to take part in this survey, this activity, where they were law enforcement officials and a suspect came up on them and how they responded to them. Well, the one activist, he had his gun on his hip, or play gun, on his hip. This a suspect came up on him. He gave the command, "You need to stop, sir. You need to stop, sir." And the guy continued to move forward towards him. He pulled his gun out. "Sir, you need to stop." And the suspect kept coming up on him, and he shot him in this video. And so it's important for us. I can't judge Chief until I walk in his shoes. He can't judge me until he walks in my shoes. And so that's where the communication comes in. That's where the dialogue comes in. That's where the building of relationships. When people have relationships, they work together better. And that's what I'm hoping, that we as the minority community and law enforcement, we can begin working together, because that's going to solve the issues. We had the forum on October 18th, and we asked all three officials, would you be amenable to having a civilian review board? And they were all in agreement. Now, I don't believe that law enforcement should investigate law enforcement. To me, that's like the fox watching the hen house. I think that's one step we can move in making real change in Manatee County. I think there needs to be more recruitment and hiring of minorities on the law enforcement, because people who look like me understand me. People who look like Chief understand him. And so it's a cross-section of all of us, the various cultures, the various cultural groups here in Manatee County, become involved and on City of Palmetto, City of Bradenton, and Manatee County Sheriff. So that's my spiel. I think we have to work together. We've got to build relationships, and we've got to do a better job of educating not only law enforcement, but also the community in the role of each. And I think when that happens, I think we will see a difference in what's going on here in Manatee County. My perception is so different from someone who doesn't look like me. As I said earlier, I've never had an incident with law enforcement. However, if one were to stop me, I'm going to be suspicious, I'm going to be afraid, and I don't trust them. That's Susie's, and she's never had that. That's why I think it's important to build these relationships, so that I can understand what's going on in that officer's mind, and for him to understand what's going on in mine. Why am I acting the way I'm acting? We need to understand that, and when we understand that, then we can move forward as a community here in Manatee County, because I want Manatee County to be better. I know Manatee County can be better by us all working together for the same common goal and cause. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Razalowski. I'm the police chief for the city of Bradenton. For those of you who don't know, the city of Bradenton we go a little east of I-75. We run out to the causeway. We zigzag from the river south as far as Cortez Road. The city's about 15 square miles, 52,000 people. Of that 52,000 people, there's approximately I would say 12% Hispanic community now and about 9% Black community. The Hispanic community has overtaken the Black community in the city of Bradenton. That's one of the key issues for us, is minority recruitment of officers. Now, the city of Bradenton's doing pretty good as far as Hispanic officers. We're almost there. I believe you should mirror the population, because you want the community to see when they look at an officer, a similar face that they see in the mirror. Black recruitment is very, very difficult because it's all about money and it's all about economics. Why come to the city of Bradenton and make $39,000 a year when a black officer who's in demand across the state can go to Tampa, go to the sheriff's office and make $46,000? So it's very difficult to hire and retain black officers. We're doing a lot better now. We're probably need 8 more, and then we'll be where we are. And we give minority officers, especially with their education and some of them coming out of the military, we search for these type of people to mirror the community. How to prevent a situation like Ferguson in the city of Bradenton or Manatee County? It's just like Susie says, it's communication. If you have a police force that mirrors the community and is dedicated to professional police service and is dedicated to customer service, and they work the same area day in and day out. We instituted that about 12 years ago. We've seen marvelous results, whether you're a black officer, a white officer, or Hispanic officer. We put you in the same neighborhood day in and day out. And over the years, the people get to know their officer, the officers get to see the kids in the neighborhood grow up. It works both ways, where in some instances, the officers give the people their phone number. And instead of calling the police if something happens, they just call their neighborhood officer up on the phone. That's exactly what we're looking for, that communication, that type of trust. Other times, it's very interesting when somebody calls the police and the neighborhood officer is busy doing something else and another officer shows up, and the first question they ask is, well, where is Officer Smith or where is Officer Jones? Because that's the officer that they're familiar with. So it's all about building partnerships. The police are not in this together. It took us quite a while, because you're talking about young men and women who also have a mindset of crime and where crime is and who commits crime. And what we're trying to teach our officers, basic information about, look, what we want you to do is go out there and think about if your mother, your father, your sister, your brother was having an encounter with a police officer, how you want that encounter to go. And that's how you should act accordingly, because eventually it will all come back to the chief's office. And if you don't give people the proper respect and courtesy and professional service, we're going to call you on the carpet about it. So since we've gone to that, crime has gone down over the years in both East and West Bradenton. Complaints against officers have gone down, but we still have a lot of work to do, because there is still a lot of distrust in minority communities, whether they're migrant workers or whether they're black family members. And that's why we encourage the partnership, and we thank the NAACP for opening the dialogue back in October, because it's really helped, because we want to communicate with the people, because our philosophy is to police the way that neighborhood wants. Now, we could go out there and, based on crime statistics, say, okay, officers, this is what I want you to concentrate on. But we don't do that. We try and talk to the neighborhood and ask them, what is important to you? We may perceive we have a burglary problem in that neighborhood, but if their number one issue in that neighborhood is people drinking in public on the corner, or what other issue it is, that's what we want to concentrate on. So we police differently, basically, in each neighborhood based on the needs and the wants of the community. A lot of people have called up and complained about traffic enforcement along East Manatee Avenue, but that's one of the priorities of the neighborhood on the north side of Manatee Avenue. If it wasn't for them saying that's one of our top priorities, the neighborhood officers wouldn't be out there on Manatee Avenue. So that's what we're trying to do. It is so much more involved with economics and jobs and just general dissatisfaction of where the country is right now, that really the police are taking a lot of of heat. And I understand that because no matter where government is, most citizens know if they call 911, they can always count on the police to come. And citizens call 911 for everything. And so the police come, and our goal is to provide, as I said, customer service, but we try and provide an extra step in that customer service so we won't get that same complaint again. And then I have the supervisors go back to the people and say, hey, when the officer came, was he polite? Was he professional? Was his appearance appropriate? Was he respectful? Did he solve your problem? So it's all about communication and working together in partnership because we're all in this together. So that's basically our goal. It's nothing magical to it. We encourage all the neighbors that live in the city to come in and do a ride-along with their neighborhood officer to get a first-hand view of what's going on in their neighborhood and why the police department does what it does. The sheriff also has the Citizens Academy that the people can come in and attend an actual Citizens Academy, just like the officers do, and get an idea of why things are done the way they are, and then do a ride-along. So law enforcement is going to continue to reach out to try and partner with the community, and I've been very pleased over the last 12 years about how the community has been reaching back, especially the minority community. But I acknowledge, as they acknowledge, we still have a lot of work to do. And I look forward to questions at the end of Chief Wells. I tried to tell you everything so Chief Wells wouldn't have anything left to say.
Good afternoon. I want to thank all of you for allowing me to be here today. I want to thank Susie Copeland because she has been a blessing to all of us in the community as we work on issues throughout the entire community. You have to have cooperation from all the parties, and we definitely have that here in Manatee County. When I took over as chief 4 years ago, one of my main philosophies at that time was not just to serve the community, but to be the community. I wanted to be Palmetto. And to do that, you have to change the mindset of the officers that have been there for a long time. That's not always real easy, but you have to make sure that they understand that being part of the community is just as important as serving the citizens in that community. We have done a far better job, in my opinion, law enforcement in general in the last 4 or 5 years than we ever have. We have a lot to make up for. If you go back into history, there's always going to be an issue with trust in the minority community because of the way they've been treated for decades. So I always feel that we're trying to make up for issues in the past, and so we have to work harder to do that. One thing that we do in Palmetto is I was blessed to have 2 retired sheriff's office deputies, 2 minority law enforcement officers, Jan Allison and Hubert Robinson. They retired. And they wanted to come to work for me. So that was a great opportunity for me to put 2 African-American officers that have been here their entire career, grew up here in the African-American community. Why? Because I want them to serve in a way that we do not normally serve. I want them to be handling issues daily, not worrying about arrest, not worrying about how many contacts they get during a shift. I just want them to be out there reaching out to the people, talking to the people. And why that was important for me to have 2 senior officers there, senior officers are a lot better at handling problems than young rookies. Young rookies have one thing on their mind. I was one a long, long time ago. And that's just getting out there and putting bad guys in jail. Okay, but law enforcement is far more than that. So you have to have seasoned, experienced officers that know how to go in and talk to people and handle problems individually. And that's all I have them do. And that has really given me a lot of input and a lot of information out of the community that we were not getting before. Another thing that I do is I started 4 years ago to meet with local pastors in the area. that has been extremely successful because we're able to sit down. Pastor Livingston, I'm sure many of you know him, and Pastor James, Pastor Holly, we all get together. We have other people from the community come and meet as well. And we just talk about issues that are going on, and not only handling those problems, but how do we handle some of the issues of young black males, especially coming out of jail, coming back into the community. How can we help them? As you know, it's very difficult for anyone coming out of jail to get hired. And if they're not making money and they're not able to take care of their families, well, there are going to be more issues for them on the street because they're going to make some money and provide for their family. So we try to look for ways of getting them bonded to make them a lot more attractable as they get to a job site. We've got some employers throughout the county that will go ahead and hire them. Honeycomb has been real big for us down south. And if we can just get them back into the workforce and get them on the right track, we can keep that recidivism rate down. I mean, they really want to provide for their family, and we want them to do it the right way. So we're trying to get into the jail now and start working with them prior to their release. And by having these pastors and these local activists in the community work with them as they're in jail, knowing they're going to come out, and then having a family unit around them to guide them through the process. It's one thing to tell a person, go to Suncoast Workforce, go here, well, if they don't have any transportation, they're not going to get there. They're not going to be able to do anything that you're telling them. So we're trying to work on having transportation available, get them to these sites, help them out, and then hopefully get them a job. We've been very, very blessed to have local support. Every year we do what's called Summer Slam, where we're able to reach out to our community and pass out backpacks to young children less fortunate. They're about to go to school. You know, we know times are tough for families, and sometimes they just cannot afford those school supplies that are so badly needed for their young children. So we try to help them out with that. Palmetto Youth Center has been big for us, having events there, reaching out to the community, providing resources. You know, and so for us, you know, law enforcement has not always been involved in those type of situations. And we're making an effort to make sure that every event that goes on, we are not only a part of, but the community understands that we're there to provide a service. And we don't want that service to always be locking someone up. We want to prevent people from being locked up. So we want to be proactive in anything that we do. Once again, I want to thank Susie. I want to thank my commissioners and my mayor for allowing me to kind of go out and do the things that I do on a regular basis, because without community support and without government support, it's very hard for us to do what we need to do. And we have a very large Hispanic population as well. So, you know, my dynamics in the city of Palmetto are different than most. I have to worry about 3 different, you know, cultures for the most part. So I have to worry about making sure that I have some Hispanic deputies or officers that are there in the Hispanic community, because so many do not speak English. There's a big distrust there as well. So we're working very hard, but if they can't explain, if a citizen can't explain to my officer what's happening, because we have a language barrier, that's very difficult for them to solve the crime. So we make sure that we have Hispanic officers in place as well. And we are having a difficult time recruiting young black men or women to law enforcement today. And I'm not really sure. The numbers are not as high as they used to be. The last couple that I've gotten in the last 2 years have come out of the county. One from Fort Myers, and another one came from east of Hardy. And I don't know why that is. I have a representative in the academy. They're there in the academy teaching, so we try to nab up anything that we can while we're in there. But the numbers are low. The Hispanic population, we have a lot of Hispanic recruits. They're a lot easier to hire right now and to find, and we're all competing for African American law enforcement officers. But we continue to try to make sure that we represent our community, which is not always easy, but it's our job to make sure that we get that done. So I'll be here for any questions that you may have. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here.
I think both chiefs have given an accurate account. I want to say this, that I spoke to a young lady, I think it was last week, it might have been the week before, in her neighborhood over by G.D. Rogers Elementary School, and where Miss Eloise Bacon lives. And that group had formed a quasi-neighborhood association. They had City of Bradenton officers coming in, talking to them. They were moving forward. And then someone from the community, or maybe they weren't from the community, came in and says, "You're just having the community be snitches." And that kind of dissolved that relationship. I want to say to the minority community, if my son is dealing in drugs and committing crimes, I need to call law enforcement. We've got to show tough love for our children. We cannot sit by and allow our children to be criminals. We've got to turn them in. You turn them in, you may be saving their lives. And so that's from the minority community, that's something that we need to do. We can't protect our children when they're committing crimes. We've got to call law enforcement. I love my children dearly. And I pray to God that if they're out there committing crimes, that I have the courage and enough love for them to call 911. You can't allow them, because you then become part of the problem in the community. So thank you guys. I do appreciate the collaboration, the work that you're doing with the NAACP, and I think reaching out to the community. Community's got to reach in now and work with them.
Okay, we're ready for questions from the audience now. If you will use the microphone to ask your question, state your name and then ask your question. And since we have such a large audience today, we'd like to ask you to limit your remarks to 2 minutes so that everyone gets a chance to speak. Thank you.
My name is John Steinmeier. I'd like to ask the chiefs about the policy of shooting to kill. As a citizen, I find it very hard morally to accept such a policy when police have so many weapons available to them. It seems to me that a threatening person could be tased or could be shot in the leg or something to disable him without being shot to death.
Use of force, any use of force, we view as very, very serious, especially use of a firearm. Police officers are trained to shoot center mass. We're not trained to shoot to kill. We're not trained to wound. Shooting people in the leg and the arm, that's TV stuff. If the situation is that dire that the officer must use his weapon, we're looking at a situation where he must use it to protect his own life or the life of somebody else. But they're trained at the range in most police departments to shoot center mass, wherever that is. And Chief Wells, you can expand on that.
No, I'll just add that anytime that officer has to draw his weapon and to shoot that weapon, it's a deadly force situation. He's taking that gun out of his holster to diffuse a situation. Like the chief said, I'm either protecting myself or I'm protecting someone else. If we didn't need to use deadly force during that situation, a gun wouldn't be drawn. We would be using a taser. We would be using OC spray or whatever intermediate weapon that we have in our possession. So we always are trained, as the chief stated, to shoot center mass to eliminate the threat. And I would say that a wounded man can still kill you. So we're trying to make sure that we save ourselves and save the other person that we may be helping. Thank you.
Let me also add, law enforcement officers throughout this county every night go out and face evil. And they use good, sound judgment. Because believe me, they could be shooting a person just about every other night. But they use their training, they use their professionalism, they use other weapons to try and avoid that. So If you ever want to come out to the police departments and do a ride along, you'll see these dangerous situations night after night that these young men and women are faced with, and use great restraint in protecting this community, and use the least amount of force necessary that they can to make an arrest, because they don't want to get hurt and they don't want to hurt anybody else. But it's certainly a concern is officer safety and the safety of the general public when they use such weapons.
My name is Suzanne Dickey. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters. This is not a question, really, it's a comment. I would just like to thank our three speakers for the tone of the conversation here and for the very helpful amount of information you have given us. This clearly is not Ferguson. Thank you.
My name is Lynn Perez, and I want to take 2 sessions to talk. The first one deals with, I have a duplex, and it's just east of First Street. It's right behind Miro Largo, or used to be Manatee Woods, and right next door to a Haitian church. And one day I got up and I heard this noise, someone out there talking, and we have someone that rides his bicycle that is schizophrenic, so I thought maybe it was him, and it wasn't him. And this man was dressed really nicely, and I thought, oh my God. And then I looked and I saw a car, so I opened my door, and there was a police officer down to my carport, and then police officers. So I asked the police officer, he said, well, there's some teenagers holed up over there. And I said, well, I own this. You know, the woman I rent to is at work. And so I don't know who's in there, you know, maybe the grandchildren. Well, that was it. The grandchildren had broken in her house, gone down the street in broad daylight, broke in place. Well, it didn't. Came back and got the right tools and then broke into it. Got a TV off the wall and was walking down and crawled back in the window, and they're in there using drugs. And so this went on, and they were sort of trying to get the children out, but time was going on, and they were going to break down my door. And I said, I can't afford to have that door broken down. Please, I'm retired, you know. Well, a black police officer came on duty, and he said, suck it up, guys. You're getting paid overtime. I got a crew coming in, gonna relieve you. And came over and apologized to me and said, your door's not gonna get broken down. They did talk those young kids out. And I found out, now that grandmother had rented to me for a long, long time. And she got 3 of the children dropped on her. And the middle one had been already in juvie and then sent further. And she'd taken her younger brother and had gotten him involved in stuff. And so I found out that when they were over there various times with the grandmother, that he said, you're housing felons. This one has been stealing in this neighborhood, and you're going to, so it gave me a reason to try to evict the grandmother. So I did, and the grandmother was very, very understanding about it. But I was so grateful for that black police officer that arrived on the scene and assured me that they were not going to break down my door. Now that's the one. Now the other one, and that to me, that I'm bragging about it. You know, they were nice, they were polite, but they were getting tired. These kids weren't coming out, okay? Now the other one is, I know the sister that's involved. It was her brother. He was a firefighter. I understand on a leave. He was a post-traumatic stress syndrome. He'd been drinking, I guess, and he had threatened her. So she left and went to a neighborhood, and they called the police. The neighbor did. Okay, I'm going to summarize. I understand the very first time when the police officers were there, he did not have a weapon. Now my thing is, if you can bring down a charging elephant down to his knees, then yes, the second time he went back in and got a weapon, and by then, you know, they shot him and they killed him right in her doorway. But why not try first with something where you can bring them down and not kill them? He was killed. He was a firefighter and was killed.
Well, let me just say that is a case that is still under criminal and internal investigation by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. We have our service weapons. When we use those, we ask an independent agency to take a look at it, so the citizen we would have confidence in the investigation. Let me just say this. the first goal of negotiations is to negotiate. When we get to these places, we're in no hurry to bust a door down or to shoot anybody. And the fire department, the Bradenton firemen, if you know, we were prepared to stay all night. But when he came out with a gun in his hand, it sort of forced us to go to a higher level that I can't get into, but it was very unfortunate that the statements he was making, and he decided what he wanted to do was basically suicide by cop. And it is unfortunate, but that is definitely not our goal. That's most of the time, the vast majority of times, we talk to people, and we're prepared to stay all night if we have to and talk them out.
Hi, my name is Norma Dunwoody, and I'm a member of the Bradenton Housing Authority. I have a two-sided version. Number one, I have relatives who are both policemen. One now works for the city of Bradenton, and the other one belonged to Palmetto. He was the chief of police, Gary Lowe. I fear for their lives. That's one side. But I'm also grateful for the policemen. I believe it might have been prior to Chief Raz's position here. But if a policeman should offer me any kind of help, I'm grateful enough. And I usually write the police chief and ask that this letter become a part of their record. I'm not above asking, is my time up? I'm not above asking for and receiving, but I can't agree with you, Chief Raz, that the policemen do not use I felt that I was threatened. Maybe you need more training. Maybe you need officers to train some kind of go-between and really find out. I really don't think it's necessary to kill everybody. And that's the way it's felt in the black community, that you're not capable. Not that you don't, but you're just not capable of really understanding and walking in my shoes. So thank you very much.
My name is Dave Klaus. I'd also like to thank the NAACP for today's tone, and the police chiefs for being here as well. Many of you may not realize, but last Friday was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and I didn't realize it till it was almost here. And I would like to ask the chiefs what we could do as a community, not only on Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, but at other times, to really show our appreciation to the police community.
I'll say that we are very fortunate here in Manatee County to really have a group of citizens that really contact us on a regular basis and thank us and write letters. I just don't think that you hear about that on enough, because we don't have good print in the media when it comes to, you know, the acknowledgement of good things going on. But I would just say anytime that you see a law enforcement officer, then you could just let them know how much you appreciate them. I think that's all they would ask for is a positive acknowledgement from time to time, and we get that a lot now. And really, other than that, they are doing a job they love to do, and they don't expect praise, and they know that often comes with their position, but they do it anyway. Thank you.
Believe me, I talk to these young people every day, and I call them young people because they're much younger than me. They do feel it's an honor to be a police officer and to serve and protect the community in which they're serving. Yeah, I mean, yes, sometimes the police chiefs have problems with the news media because the police do so many more things right that you never read about in the newspaper. If there's something negative, that sells newspapers. That's on social media right away. It's not like we're doing more things more often. It's just the nature of social media nowadays. But I get emails and telephone calls from people all the time about the great work our law enforcement officers are doing. I get it, and then I relay it to them. But if you get a chance and you see an officer, you just say thank you for your service, and he should respond back. It's an honor to serve you.
My name is Charlotte Scarborough. I want to commend the policeman on an incident that happened to me. I'm a little heavy on the pedal. So I was speeding in a zone that was not supposed to be correct. The policeman flashed behind me and I said, oh my goodness, what did I do? He came up to me and he introduced himself. Good morning, I am Officer so-and-so. I thought that was so polite of him to preface his accusation of me with that comment. And right away, I felt quite at ease. And we went on to talk, and he told me my options for my ticket. You can do this, you can do that, and you can do the other thing. I felt so good about this officer, and I don't know if that was a special training or if that was just his way of being a very polite officer. By the way, he was an older officer. I have another comment. I have 2 boys, and sometimes when they were younger, I could not sleep until they arrived at home. I lived in a neighborhood that was largely integrated, predominantly Caucasian, and they were stopped all the time coming home to their own home. And I'm wondering, I just wish the policemen could be colorblind on certain incidents. Thank you very much.
You know, I share your pain. I have 3 sons, and it seems like when they were young teenagers and young men living at home, as soon as they left the house, the police had radar and knew exactly where they were and what they were doing. So, yeah, you know, a lot of these traffic stops, you know, the accusation of driving while black, I know even at the chief of police, I still do traffic stops on my lunch hour or when I'm driving around town if somebody's do something. I don't write anybody a ticket, though. I give them a warning. But it's very difficult nowadays to even see if it's a male or female or black or white. And we get a lot of this in the black community when the officers stop people in the black community, and the odds are if you're an officer, you're working a black neighborhood, the majority of people you're going to stop are black. Just like when an officer is in a white neighborhood, the majority of his people are going to be white. We talk to the officers all the time about this, about not having preconceived notions, but we're all human. And as we all know, things aren't like they used to be. I mean, when we were growing up, you know, you didn't just have to watch out for your mom and dad. You had to watch out for your neighbor, because if your neighbor saw you doing something, they were going to tell your parents. Times have changed. I mean, the breakdown of the American family, both white and black, is really creating a problem for us with our youth that we're trying to raise. And so it's a much more difficult problem than black and right or wrong. I mean, it's much more involved, and that's why the NAACP was correct in starting this dialogue, and we're going to continue to work with the NAACP in all the neighborhoods. So we're all, to make sure everybody knows, we're all in this together, and we're not adversaries.
I am Sara Hernandez. I'm not from this area. I'm from Sarasota, but I was very moved by precisely this last comment in terms of the attempt from the NAACP and the police to come together to start addressing these very serious social issues we have today. With that light in mind, I want to speak to the earlier point with regards to the awareness of committing suicide by police. if we do know that that is a problem, it seems to me that we as a community, this is not just a point about the police need to, we all have to be working, coming up with a solution to that problem. It's a very serious problem as well. And I think it might be the beginnings of an even bigger picture of trying to further prevent unnecessary deaths. And I think we all have to come up with a solution for that. I have not heard solutions, only the recognition of the problem. The other point I want to raise is I'm moved by what I'm hearing from the police in the sense of a clear desire to reach out to the community. What I've heard, however, at least in this particular case, if I understood it correctly, the idea is putting black officers to be predominantly working in neighborhoods where there's mostly black population. And so that creates a concern for me in the sense, and then when we move out, right, or I'm saying as a Latina as well, when we move out into other communities and we are immediately targeted because we don't belong here, becomes also a problem. So I don't think it's just about having the older black officers doing the work. Everybody needs to be part of that training. And I'm moved by the fact that this is the attempt to do that. I think we have a lot of work to do, but this is the beginning for that. And I hope that this effort does continue.
Yeah, I apologize if I gave you that impression. We assign minority officers, Hispanic and black and whites, all over the city because we want to provide great customer service, whether you get it from a black officer or a white officer. And we want the community to feel the same way.
My name is Margaret Moore, and I am not only a member of the League of Women Voters, but of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I want to let you people in Manatee County know, if you don't know, about a wonderful program that our police and our sheriff department provide once a year. Between Manatee Glens and NAMI, we have a week-long training that is called Crisis Intervention Training for the mentally ill, which is another minority group. And it trains them to approach a person and decide if they are mentally ill or if they are a felon, and treat them with a little more kindness and with a little more patience, etc. And they also give these police officers usually about 15 or 20 per year, and this has been going on for about 12 years, as Sheriff Stubbe started 12 years ago. They let them be off of their duties for that week to come to this training. So I want to thank you, and I feel like because that demonstrates their willingness to help with that minority group, that this county is lucky to have these police and these sheriffs that have that kind of outlook on the minority. Thank you.
My name is Ruby Bird. And I would like to say, for me personally, I have not had any minor or any contact or any problem with either of the police chiefs, that I know both of them very well. And I can say that I have some of my family members who have had maybe some contact with them, and they haven't voiced any distrust if they've had any, not yet anyway. But I have two questions. My first question is I understood Susie couple of times to refer to cultural differences. And I can remember and I've been in Manatee County a long time, some years ago we did have what was in the community by the police, cultural diversity training. And that is so much needed because there's so much body languages that are part of one culture that's not a part of the other culture. And I would just like to know if that's one of the things on the agenda that we might incorporate again. My next question is to the police officers, and that's to understand, how do you feel, and if there's any work in progress for body cameras?
Thank you, Ms. Bird. We are still conducting human diversity training throughout the entire nation. What we're trying to do in Palmetto, we actually have reached out to Susie several months ago and really try to enhance that. Get some true experts in there that don't come from a police environment, and that have maybe more training when it comes to human diversity from a community level. So we're working on that right now. We just put aside some funding to to get that group into Palmetto PD. As far as body cameras, Palmetto PD has actually tested several cameras. We have determined that we like one that we probably will buy. Here's the problem with body cameras, and this is the only problem that I have at this particular moment. Our public record laws are so liberal that we will not be able to choose on which type, what videos go to the public and what videos don't. And I'm not talking about anytime we have a criminal investigation or we have an internal affairs investigation where all that can be made public. As it stands right now, anytime I go into your home to handle domestic or to handle maybe a private situation with a body camera on, that has to be given to not only the media, but anybody that requests it. So therefore, this domestic situation that we handled, which is a very private moment for you, but we have it on camera, somebody can come get that and put that on YouTube or do whatever they want with that. And that's an issue for me. And that's the only problem I have with body cameras. Do I think that they should be worn? Yes. Do I think that they will help, situations where we don't have enough information or the public needs more information on some of these criminal investigations? Absolutely. But right now, I am definitely not going to allow someone to come in and download, 30 days worth of videos just so they can have fun with it. So until I can get some cooperation from our local representatives and get that law changed, we will have to continue to try to push for that.
Hi, I'm Tom Walker from Sarasota. I took the police academy, by the way, that Chief DePino offers down there, 10 weeks, 3 hours a week. I highly recommend it to anybody. Of course, you can always ride along, but to know what the police do behind the scenes, how they're trained, the problems they have, what they go through. They show you videos, real stops. They let you take part in simulated encounters. It's well worth it for anyone. I was going to ask about cameras, and you might want to just turn them on when the officer has to draw his weapon. That may be a solution. I don't know. But that's one question. And then finally, the question about using the police to solve our problems such as homelessness, drug abuse, and addiction, and the mentally ill. There's a video called it's not over-criminalized. Well, perhaps it is. At any rate, how do you feel about the police having to use their force instead of these other community services to deal with someone who's mentally unstable or has an addiction? How do you deal with people like that differently?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of resources countywide to really do all the things we would like to do with our drug addiction and with our mentally ill patients that we deal with. And that's why, unfortunately, so many of them get locked up in our county jail for no reason. And I know that we had a meeting several months ago with Congressman Buchanan. They're working on some funding now and try to revamp that entire mental illness bill. But right now we have Manatee Glens, which is probably our biggest partner when it comes to mental illness and also drug addiction. So we try to determine, what we can do, first of all, to get them into treatment. Our first avenue is not to take them to jail. That's not what we're trying to do. And as far as being selective on when an officer turns the camera on and when they don't, that would probably bring more issues and more questions than not having one at all. So thank you.
Hi, my question is for Ms. Copeland. And I was just, and I asked this.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but at this point, METV needs us to close down our program because their time is up. We thank our speakers today. I think we learned a great deal from them. And we thank the Bradenton Women's Club for letting us use their hall. And by the way, they're having a rummage sale on Saturday from 9 to 12 if you want to pick up some items. And And we will see you again, hopefully, for our next program in February, which will be on the need for healthcare expansion.